Good morning and welcome to today's video in which we'll be answering one of the most burning gardening questions, which is
what to grow in case of a zombie apocalypse.
My name is Vera Greuting and I'm an expert on edible gardening, and this is my son Sebastiaan, who's an expert on everything else. A lot of the advice that we'll be giving is applicable to other kinds of apocalypse as well, but some things are specific to a zombie apocalypse. Unfortunately, I'm no expert on zombies, so this is why I brought in Sebastiaan, and he will supply the expertise on that topic. So when we first started talking about this topic, I was thinking of what annual vegetables would be best to grow. And I think you need things that will give you a lot of nutritional value, but that are also hopefully or ideally easy to store, so that because you will of course need to supply things, get supplies for the whole year. And I think it's also important that you can easily propagate them yourself. So either you can easily save the seed, or like in the case of potatoes, you can keep some potatoes for planting later next year.
And it would also be handiest if you can either eat those vegetables raw, or they are easy to turn into edible food. You won't always have access to a fully functioning kitchen after all.
That is quite possible. So my number one crop would be potatoes, because you can actually survive on potatoes exclusively. But you want to beware of disease, like in the unfortunate case of Irish famine, which was caused by potato blight. So if you want to avoid that problem, and in our rainy climate, blight is often a problem, then it's good to grow some blight-resistant varieties. I am growing two varieties this year, and one of them is Annabelle, which is an early variety, and that means that you can often harvest it before blight strikes. And then I have Sevilla, which is I'm treating my potatoes for planting soon. And Sevilla actually has a pretty good disease resistance or blight resistance. But there are some varieties which are fully resistant, like the Hungarian Sarpomira. It's also good if the crops have multiple uses. For example, like in potatoes.
Potato starch can, for example, be used to manufacture glue. You can even make potato guns.
Potato guns? What is a potato gun?
You launch potatoes at people.
Like a cannon?
Yes.
Okay.
And potatoes are, of course, easy enough to turn into food. Simply bake them over a fire.
You can bake them in ashes. That's excellent. My second crop would be winter squash, because it also has provides a lot of carbs, so like a lot of nutritional value there, some vitamins. It can be stored very easily, and it is easy to propagate. You can save the seeds and then use them next year. Some, or like actually all squash will easily hybridize, cross. So it might be best if you grow just one variety, and then you can easily keep it for the next years. This is a variety that we grew last year. It's called Barbara, and as you can see, it's now the end of March and the fruits are still perfectly fine, so it can be stored for a long time. And it was the most productive variety of all the varieties that we grew last year. It gave us 18.4 kilo from just one plant.
Squash is also can be useful as weaponry because of the simple mass, and because of how hard the shell is, it can be used as a blunt weapon.
And you said like the large squash that you can, that you use for Halloween, like if you would...
You could hollow them out and put them over zombies' heads, yes, if you wanted to incapacitate. Yes, effectively turn them into a jack-o'-lantern.
Mm-hmm.
Without
jack-o'-lantern zombies.
Itself.
It's like Halloween squared.
Yeah.
My crop number 3 would be beans, because those also have a lot of, like legumes have a lot of nutritional value. And you can easily dry them and store them for the winter. There are varieties that are multi-purpose that you can use as greens, like in the green stage as vegetable, and then you can also save them for the winter. And the seeds, since they're self-pollinating, they don't cross-pollinate, that it's very easy to keep the variety true. So you can even grow several varieties of beans so that you don't get bored.
You could also use the small and hard beans if you have a very even floor that doesn't have any coarseness. You could simply use them to make zombies trip up if they try to walk over them.
Yeah, So that you could keep like a handful of beans in your pocket at all times, and if you see zombies approaching, then you just throw that on the floor, and then that will buy you a bit of time.
You do need a very specific kind of floor, but...
So polish your floors.
That's the advice here.
So my crop number 4 would be garlic, and I was wondering if, like as is the case with vampires, garlic will ward off vampires. So I thought maybe there's something that you can eat that will make you taste bad to zombies, but I'm not sure it's.
From what we have found, zombies do not discern in taste, unfortunately. No
so
such easy solution.
But I think garlic is still worth growing because it's antibacterial. So it's also good medicine. It combines well with the rest of the foods that you'll be growing, the potatoes and the squash. Even beans taste better with garlic. And it means that your food will not, again, become boring too quickly. You can use it for, like I said, you can use it for medicine. And you can propagate it easily again. If you save a couple of your cloves, then you can plant them in fall for the harvest next year. Then my crop number 5 would be greens, because as you know, it's important to eat your greens, and that is still true even in when there is a zombie apocalypse going on. So I would either advise you to grow lettuce or kale, but preferably both. And lettuce is self-pollinating, so it's quite easy to save the seeds. You will get lots of seeds even if you let just one plant flower. And kale likewise is quite easy to save seed from. And since lettuce grows well in the cool seasons like spring and fall, but kale has a longer season and it's quite hardy, so you can also keep it outside and harvest it during the winter. And then an optional crop for me would be herbs, because there are a lot of perennial herbs which are very easy to grow and they double as medicine. And in case of zombie apocalypse, that it might be hard to get to a doctor when you have a cold or something. So I think it's good to get some knowledge of, basic knowledge of herbal medicine. I would highly recommend this book, which is called Medicinal Herbs, A Beginner's Guide by Rosemary Gladstar. So what you would want to grow are things like rosemary, thyme, sage, or very highly medicinal and very easy to grow. And they also combine excellently with the crops that will be growing anyway.
It is also handy if you can simply recognize them, because they occasionally appear in the wild or in people's front yards.
Yeah. If you live in the Mediterranean, I think that rosemary is growing in the wild, but there are some other herbs that will be, or in abundant gardens. Well, so far the crops that we talked about are mostly annual. Well, the herbs are perennial, and garlic, you could argue, is a perennial plant as well. But mostly annuals, or we'll be growing them as annuals. But it's also a good idea to add some perennial vegetables to your garden, because those are easy to grow and often require very little care. So if you, due to some problems with zombies or zombies temporarily invading your area, you will have to relocate, you can come back and the vegetables will still be there. Because there are things like asparagus, Sebastiaan's favorite. No?
Not quite.
I think that in the case of zombie apocalypse, you would really start enjoying it quickly, or start...
Take what I can get, but not enjoy, I can assure you of
It's not your first choice still. Okay, so things like asparagus are very long-lived. It can live for 20 years. And I have actually a whole video on perennial vegetables, so check that out if you want to know more. So in case you have to relocate or you're on the run from zombies, then it's very important, I think, to learn to forage. And so to learn to recognize edible plants that grow in your area, weeds, greens, and but also berries, and especially for fall, mushrooms are a good source of high quality protein. Also hunting, I think you should. Yes. I'm a vegetarian, but I might reconsider if there is an apocalypse.
About the mushrooms, you had better be very certain
that
you are eating the right
But
ones.
maybe it's also good to know some poisonous mushrooms in case, you're...
I don't think it would work on zombies, but...
I thought the cyanide capsules that you have when you're captured. But I think that the problem is that the mushrooms don't kill you instantly, so, or like, yeah.
You'd have to find very specific ones.
I don't know whether there are mushrooms that kill you that fast. Like the very poisonous one, actually, it takes days for you to die. Yeah. Know your mushrooms. So far we were sort of talking more about preparing yourself, surviving. But if you want to go offensive, are there things that you can use as a... Well, we talked about some weapons, but are there some other possibilities? How can you kill a zombie?
A zombie, the easiest way to kill one is to interrupt the nerves that control its motor functions. So
Like where?
targeting the spine at the back of the neck, for example, is a good
Yeah,
place.
that's a good advice. I think like if you, maybe you could use some gardening tools. Like if you have a very sharp spade, maybe like...
Indeed, that would be a very useful tool. And there aren't many plants that can do it, but you can use plants to keep them restrained. For example, if you have some strong vines, just tie them down.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I don't know if any of the beans have vines that are strong enough.
Maybe when they're green. I think when they're dry, then no longer. But like, yeah,
Worth a try.
But yeah, also that this is a good lesson. Like when we were talking about the gardening tools, you should keep your spades really sharp. Maybe even like get a machete. Machete, is it?
Yes, a machete.
I think that might also be good. Which reminds me, there's a blog, Sharpen Your Spades. Shout out, Sharpen Your Spades. Oh yeah, one more thing I was thinking, maybe could you like grow bamboo, because that again is a very versatile plant. Could you use it as a weapon somehow? Like if you like sharpen the point or something?
You could set up a sort of a palisade. You could also use thorny bushes to do this if you manage to grow them up to a certain height. Just make it very difficult terrain for anyone to get through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, that would be good like if they're multifunctional. So if you have things that have thorns but also edible berries, for example, sea buckthorn or hawthorn, both native in our area, so they're also great for wildlife. Bamboo, edible shoots in spring. You can use it as stakes for your beans, and you can use it to build a palisade, as you said.
Yes. And you can use it as stakes for the zombies.
Would that work?
If you pin them down somewhere.
Can you
yes.
like, if you poke them,
if you aim right, you can hit them in the head. Yes.
Again, then I think it would be best to aim for the eyes.
They don't necessarily have the same weakness of the eyes of relying on their sight as humans do. But
that's what I was thinking. Like, if you blind them, would that help, or do they rely on smell?
I believe it is mostly sound and
Sound.
smell to some small.
Can you like deafen them?
Yes, you could. Although I don't know if you want to get so close to a zombie as to put I don't know, earmuffs on it. Don't believe that would be the most efficient way to take care of it.
No, that would be probably too late. So I think we covered basically all the important things.
Yes, all the basics you need to survive a zombie apocalypse with effectively just a garden and a gardening shed.
Yeah. So stay safe, keep your spades, keep your spades sharp.
That's the one.
Okay. And if you have any more burning gardening questions, please ask them below and we'll do our best to answer them. Happy gardening!
Happy apocalypse!